So randomly just finished Unfinished Tales, and it is a very hard book, but if you can get through some things, it's very good. So here's basically a rundown of everything you get into it. So it's first of Tua and his coming to Gondolin, which is a nice story. He meets a god, and then he's just like, you're got big things coming your way, so go to Gondolin. So he meets another guy, an elf, and they go to Gondolin together, and it's quite cool. I haven't read The Fall of Gondolin yet, but that's next month on Spotify. But that's a nice story. It ends with him seeing the city, and it just sounds gorgeous. Then you have the most devastating story, and most like, oh my god, this story. The children of Hurin, the childhood of Turin, and then Hurin and his story with his sister of Nienor. And if you know anything about it, it's very good, but it's very dark, and the reader knows what's going to happen. You know the basic of the story, and it's like the Titanic basically, and it ends very tragically. It's Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet mixed into one with a Greek tragedy as well. Awesome. Next, then we have that's the first age, and then you go into the second age. It starts off with the description of the island of Numenor. Exciting stuff. If you like the facts, if you like the real gritty detail, that's one of the bits for you. And then you got Aldarion and Erendis, the mariner's wife, which is like, you could tell that it wasn't going to end well straight from the beginning with what Aldarion is like. And what he wants to do. He wants to be a free agent and spend his life on the sea, and then he's sort of forced into marriage. And then the sly you hear the sly attacks at each other, like him and Arendis, like making subtle comments to each other. And it's like, this isn't going to work. Just don't do it. But that's another unfinished tale. Then we got the line of the Elros King of Numenor. Now this one, it just says how long their reign, and then when they died, when they lived, when they were born. It's interesting. It does tell you a little bit about them if there's something of note of that king or queen, and it tells you what actually happened to Alfarazon and Miriel. Then you got the history of Galadriel and Celeborn. Now this also proves that Rings of Power isn't as accurate as it's supposed to be, but I'll leave that for other people to argue about. I did like this story. It was cool, it was nice to hear about them. Also, they might have kids, they might not have kids, which is interesting, and how they came to where were they from? I can't remember where they're from. I'll put it note up where they're from. It says about where they're from and how they got to where they're living now in Rings of Power. I forget what it was. The disaster of the Gladden Fields. That is the story of how I'm trying to get it from memory. It's how Elendil how Isildur got to what happened to Isildur from his after the battle, the last alliance, to when he got killed, and he actually needed help for the ring. He knew there was something wrong with it, and he was on his way to Elrond to get help from him, because the three elven rings, the three high elves, he wanted their help. And then we got Sirion and Earl and the friendship of Gondor and Rohan, and how they became good friends, and that's a nice story. And it also tells you of where they made their bond, their friendship bond, their oaths to each other, which was really cool. And that's where Éomer and Aragorn actually pledged their allegiance to each other, which was cool. Then the quest of Erebor, and how Gandalf actually met Thorin, and how that all happened, I like that. I'm liking all these stories. It is very good, this book, but there's a lot of facts, and it is like a history book in some ways, so if you can get past that, it's definitely a good story. Then you've got the hunt for the ring and how that happened, and that was a good POV from from the Black Riders, from the Nazgul. It's good. You see it from their point of view, which is really interesting. I like that, and it made me like want to know more about the Nazgul. So I'm gonna do a video about them at some point. Then the battles at the Fords of Eisen. Which one was that one? I can't remember what that one was. Oh, anyway, next, the Drúedain. The Drúedain are like hobbits, in between hobbits and dwarves, but they're creepy. But there's a really cool story about them, where there's a couple of cool stories in that one, but there's not much about them. Even though I think the Rohirrim are actually led by one of them, but they're really cool. Then the Astari, which is Gandalf, the Blue Wizards, Radagast and Saruman, and how they came into being and what the Blue Wizards were. They do have names, they don't have names, depends who you listen to. And then the Palantiri, which really cool. I didn't know they were that big. Some of them are massive, and there's a master one as well. Anyway, I give it a 7. That's just a cop out, I know, but it's a hard book to read. I listened to it. I use this for reference. But let me know what you think. Did you like it? Is it hard for you to read? Because all other than The Hobbit, all the other books in my eyes are hard to read. But it's hard for me to focus sometimes. Anyway, tulip.